Hey guys, welcome back. So in this video, I want to do more detail on James Hudson as a follow-up to my Who is in Logan's Family video. And I'll leave a link in the description for that one below if you haven't seen it yet. But just mainly want to give you guys more detail and background on his origin and more of his mutant abilities as well too. After this. So I want to start off here with James's first appearance. We pretty much see him as a teenager, just being a teenager. But in his introduction, we also see that he's a bit of a rebel and he has a thing for redheads just like his dad, his biological father, by the way. And we see that in his girlfriend Tammy, like in the first panel. And so I'm pretty sure everybody already knows this, but for those who don't, usually when someone's mutant power comes to fruition, it happens in a very traumatic event in their life or puberty. And since he's 16, I think it's safe to say he hit puberty already. But in this particular manifestation of James's mutant power, it's in a drag race. He's in the lead, of course, but his front tire blows out and it sends his car flipping like multiple times. And I really like the way that Jeff Loeb is telling the story here because he has it narrated by James's adopted father. And he's talking about how he knows Logan from tours in Iraq, how Logan saved his life multiple times, how Logan introduced him to his wife Heather, and pretty much how Logan was just a good friend. So when he brought his son James to him, that he really had no choice but to take him in because he owed Logan so much. So immediately after the accident, the explosion is huge. So all his friends run over there to see if he's okay, and he crawls out of there, and he's like grotesquely dude is just effed up. And his girl Tammy's one of the first ones to get out there and get that up close to him immediately after the accident. And he's like pulling metal like rods out of his body and his like bones are like snapping into place. And she's looking at him. The first thing she says is like, "You're one of those mutants? Ew, I was about to let you hit." And at this point, James is just repeatedly denying it like, "No, I'm not one of them. Listen to me, hear what I'm saying. I'm not a mutant." And he's still pretty much in a state of shock at this point because he's never had to recover from an injury this fatal. And as soon as the sheriff touches down, we get to see that the sheriff is actually Jimmy Hudson Sr., his adopted father, who made sure that he's the first one on site so he can grab James and get him out of there before anyone starts asking questions. And immediately after that incident, Jimmy Sr. and his wife are having a discussion. Like, she's heard the things about his father, his real father, how he was, and if it weren't for you, that he'd be in jail right now. And they're just having this discussion, but they just can't come to the point to where they actually tell him who his father really was. And right here, I want to jump to an earlier issue in the Wolverine series and talk a little bit more about James's biological parents. Now, in the previous video, I did talk about Magna Lyncher, who is Magneto's wife and was working undercover, but she was compromised because she fell in love with him, had twins. When he found out she was a spy, he grabbed the kids and he jet. So afterwards, she formed a relationship with Logan. And their relationship was a lot different than the one with her and Eric because she was totally transparent with him. He knew that she was a free agent spy. He knew pretty much everything about her and about her past with Eric and the twins. And even on rare occasions when their missions would cross paths as well too. Like, for instance, they both were after a particular drug, a mother vine, that would ensure that a woman with child would give birth to a mutant that would potentially be weaponized. But she didn't tell him that she injected herself with this drug just to smuggle it. She didn't know that she was pregnant, but it turns out that she ended up giving birth to James with this enhanced drug in his system. But genuinely, at this point, she has the best intentions for the child. She brings him to Logan, tells him everything about the mother vine and his son, and pretty much tells him to take him to someone you can trust, somebody you know, someone who can raise him, and that will be able to hide him from both of our employers because they're coming after us for him if they find out that we have a child. And also take notice of this drive that she hands to Logan with information that'll help James when he gets older to know about who he is and how to handle his abilities later on in life. And at this point, Magda knows she's being followed. She knows that Logan's employers are on their way there because they heard a baby in the background before he hung up. So she's like, "Stab me so both of them can have a trail of my blood and I'll take care of them when they come to follow me." And like... Logan didn't even think twice. He just stabs her like in mid-sentence, man. It's kind of messed up. But I think he was a little upset with her injecting herself with a drug and the outcome of it being in their child's bloodstream. But at the end of the day, you can tell by the look on his face that he's kind of torn and upset to see her go away and see them separated at the same time. But I really wanted to go back to this issue because in the beginning of Ultimate X, this is what James's father was talking about when he said, "The stranger coming to my doorstep with a child crying as loud you can hear him, across the county or whatever." He was talking about Logan like right after this had happened. But going right back to the Ultimate X issue, number 1, where it's the night after the incident that James had. He's being woken up by Kitty Pryde, who comes to pay him a visit, like right the next day after the incident happens. No coincidence. And I like how they handle the dialogue between these two because she's like, "Hey, is there somewhere else we can talk where I won't be eaten alive by an alligator?" And at one point, he's like, "Why should I leave with you?" And keep in mind that, the X-Men are known at this time, but everybody might not know every single X-Men. Like, you just know the more familiar ones like Wolverine and maybe Cyclops. But for the most part, it's just a general knowledge of what people heard of about the X-Men. But what's funny, when he agrees to go with her, she's like, "I'll give you some candy," and that gets him to go. And you can see his mother here watching them leave together. But James finds a quiet place by the docks, like Kitty asked, just somewhere quiet where they can talk. And she's like, "I got something for you," and he's like, "It's not candy, is it?" Like, you can just hear the disappointment as you read the panel, like in his voice. But what she does is hand James a box that's full with Logan's personal belongings, which she was instructed to give to him after Logan's death. So now in the 1610 universe, Logan's death was a little bit different. He's going up against Magneto, and like at this point, he's just done. He said here that he's held back before fighting against Magneto, but this time he's not even going to do it. He's not going to hold back. He's going full force. And aside from what we already discussed about them having bad blood, this Magneto also killed Charles Xavier, so this is like super personal at this point. And Logan explodes so quick that he gets a few good hits on Magneto. And while it's happening, Jean Grey is in Logan's head, and she's like, "Scott, stop him. He's really gonna do this." And right here is when you see how twisted Magneto really is. So he uses his power to lift Scott's visor off and to override Iron Man's armor and goes full blast on Logan, like blasting his skin, muscle, and pretty much everything but the bone off of his body. And I gotta tell you, this is one of the most amazing displays of Wolverine's healing factor like ever, because as soon as he gets the tendons enough to recuperate just to move, dude lifts his hand and like impales Magneto, dude. Like, just the meat and the flesh are just starting to come back together from that. It's ridiculous. But then Magneto, with just enough life in him, just happens to have enough energy to freaking disintegrate the adamantium in his skeleton completely. And Magneto made sure this time that there was nothing left, like nothing at all. For real, this time it was like ashes to ashes, dust to dust, like dust to dust, like nothing. And immediately Magneto starts to get remorseful, like, "Charles will forgive me for what I did." And Cyclops is like, "Nah, there's no Charles. You killed him too. So nobody's going to forgive you." And just blows his face off. Gone, man. Like, no more Magneto at all. But I digress. So we're jumping back to Ultimate X with James and Kitty looking through this box of different belongings to Logan. Pictures of the X-Men, his dog tags, a piece of Jean Grey's hair, because he had a thing for Reds too. And he comes across that hard drive that his mother gave Logan with all the information to catch him up on who he is and answer any questions that he may have. And now, I don't have anything specifically supporting this, but I do believe that Logan made this message the same night that Magna dropped Jimmy off at his doorstep, because in the end of that same panel, it also shows Logan leaving with the child, not only to flee from the location, but to drop him off somewhere safe and leave him with somebody who he can trust. And that's the only time in between he really could have made that message, was that night. Unless he held the disc a little bit longer after he dropped Jimmy off that night and gave the disc to Kitty Pryde. But in the message that Logan leaves, it's short and sweet. He is straightforward. He's like, "Yes, I'm your father. You don't have to be the man that I was. You have your own future ahead of you. Make your own decisions, create your own path." But he also tells James that he shared some of those ideas about where he should go with his future with Kitty, so she can kind of help him out at the same time. But in his closing, he's just like, "Hey kid, for what it's worth, I never regretted having you as a son." And immediately after that, James has a ton of questions for Kitty. And she's telling him how he's very likely very similar to his father, able to heal from anything. And he's like, "Well, do I have those claws, like those things that popped out of his hands, like he does?" And she's like, "Have you tried?" And being that he's never done it before, they pop out like grotesquely, like blood is everywhere. But a second later, after pulling the claws out for the first time, the pain goes away, like completely goes away from him. But what's interesting here is Kitty starting to explain to him, well, the adamantium that your dad had on his claws, the government put on him. As soon as she started talking about that, like this metal starts to creep over his claws on his skeleton. And he asks her, have you ever seen anything like this? And she's like, well, yeah, before with Colossus, because he was able to cover his skin with organic metal. And in other series, there's been instances where he can cover his whole skeleton and even his teeth with the organic metal as well too. When he's fighting his brother at one point, and he bites him with the metal teeth, with metal fangs. But that'll do it for this one. Hopefully, I'll give you guys a better understanding about James Hudson, a bit of his background, his mutant abilities, and more of his connection to Wolverine as well too. And it's also been recently announced that he'll be joining X-Men Blue Team. This series is still pretty new, so I'm going to read a few issues before I do a little bit more on that. But just from what I looked at so far, it looks very similar to the original Blue Team from the 616 continuity. And I'm interested to see what they're going to do with as far as him taking the mantle as Wolverine. I don't think he'll take that mantle specifically because recently X-23 did. So I'm interested to see what type of name he'll take on, or if it'll have something to do with the information that Logan gave Kitty as an idea for him to move forward to his quote-unquote future. But be sure to let me know if you want me to do more videos on James Hudson, like his first encounter with Sabretooth. Just leave those in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, most importantly. Like, all the support from you guys, it helps me a lot. I'll also leave links to the previous videos talking about more of Wolverine's family and his relatives. I'll leave that link up here as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the content, and we'll do it again next time. All right, later.